Developing right now on Morning News Now, a violent end to a week-long ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. This morning, Israel resuming its assault on Gaza after accusing Hamas of violating their truce.
The way Israel defends itself matters. It is capable of neutralizing the threat posed by Hamas while minimizing harm to innocent men, women, and children. And it has an obligation to do so.
This just hours after another group of hostages is released. We have team coverage with the new efforts to pause the fighting until all the hostages are free. Also this morning, December rain. It is a soggy start to the month for millions of Americans. We're tracking a storm making its way across several states this weekend. Plus, gagged again, a state appeals court reinstates an order barring former President Donald Trump from making statements about courtroom staff in his civil fraud trial. More on the ruling, the reaction, and how it could impact the case. And ready to return, Jets QB Aaron Rodgers back on the practice field just months after what appeared to be a season-ending injury. And LeBron James' son cleared to play after suffering a cardiac arrest on the court. The latest developments as the excitement grows across the world of sports. Good morning. Good to have you with us on this Friday. I'm Joe Fryer. Savannah is off. We begin in the Middle East, where fighting resumed overnight. That week-long truce between Israel and Hamas came to an end after both sides failed to agree to another ceasefire extension. Earlier this morning, Israel resumed its bombing campaign in Gaza with signs it plans to expand its ground offensive farther south. This video shows the aftermath of an Israeli strike on Rafah, an area Israel had previously told Palestinians to flee to. Gaza health officials say dozens of Palestinians have been killed and injured since the truce expired. Also this morning, sirens sounding in southern Israeli communities near the border. The violence comes a day after Secretary Blinken's visit to Israel. He urged the government to do more to protect Palestinian civilians and, quote, act in accordance with international humanitarian law. But this morning, Israel's far-right national security minister called on his country to, quote, crush Gaza with all our might. Aid groups inside the besieged area have been quick to sound the alarm on the new devastation unfolding there. Take a listen to this message from a UNICEF spokesperson inside one of Gaza's last functioning hospitals as the bombing resumed.
The health system here is overwhelmed. This hospital simply cannot take more children with the wounds of war. There are children everywhere. These children are sleeping. There was a bomb literally 50 metres from here. I cannot overstate how the capacity has been reduced of hospitals in the last 7 weeks. We cannot see more children with the wounds of war, with the burns, with the shrapnel littering their body, with the broken bones. Inaction by those with influence is allowing the killing of children. This is a war on children.
In a few moments, we'll hear from NBC News military analyst Colonel Jack Jacobs. But before that, let's get to our foreign correspondent, Raf Sanchez, in Tel Aviv, joining us from a square where the families of hostages gather. So, Raf, what are we seeing now that the bombing campaign has resumed? And is it clear where Palestinians are supposed to flee to now?
Well, Joe, as you just heard, it is a desperate and deadly situation inside of Gaza this morning. The Palestinian Health Ministry in Gaza, which is controlled by Hamas, says at least 32 people have been killed since the ceasefire broke down, since Israeli airstrikes began. And the Israeli military is today warning residents of the southern city of Khan Yunis that the entire city is a potential active combat zone. It is urging them to flee south, closer to the Egyptian border, to the area of Rafah, which is significant, Joe, because the Israeli military was at first telling people to flee from the north to Khan Yunis. Now it's telling them to get out of Khan Yunis. So you are potentially having a very significant proportion of the population of Gaza being told to flee to the absolute most southern area. Now, this is a brutal end to a truce that lasted 7 days and a couple of minutes. Both sides blaming each other for not extending the deal. But Israel says Hamas or other Palestinian militant groups inside of Gaza began firing rockets at about 6 a.m. local time. So that is about 1 hour before the ceasefire was due to begin. Israel resuming its airstrikes shortly after 7 a.m. And as we've seen during the week, There has been more aid getting into Gaza. It is a fraction of what is needed. And all of those overlying issues remain as they were. You have a healthcare system that has collapsed. You have disease, which is spreading, and a lot of concern, especially for children, as you just heard. Jeff.
So, Raph, this comes a day after Secretary Blinken warned Israel to try and minimize civilian casualties and act in accordance with international law. Is the U.S. trying to put more pressure on Israel, and how is Israel responding to that?
So we are seeing a shift in tone from the Biden administration. They are still saying that Israel's military campaign to remove Hamas is a legitimate military objective, but you are hearing much more emphasis now, as you did from Secretary of State Blinken here in Tel Aviv last night, on reducing civilian casualties inside of Gaza. He said there cannot be the kind of large-scale displacement of civilians in the south as we've seen in the north. He said also life-critical infrastructure, so that's hospital, that's water stations, that's power stations, cannot be targeted. He is saying, though, that Hamas is embedded among the civilian population, in some cases below hospitals, and ultimately they do hold Hamas responsible for this entire situation, beginning with the October 7th terrorist attack inside the south of Israel. The question now, Joe, is can the U.S. be involved in helping to try to rebuild this ceasefire, which is shattered this morning?
And the other big question, is it even possible for that to happen right now quickly, Raph? I mean, where do things stand?
So Qatar, which were the brokers of the initial ceasefire, say they are continuing mediation efforts between Israel and Hamas to try to get this truce back on track. Interestingly, the president of Israel is in Dubai today for a climate summit where he met the emir of Qatar. They shook hands. That's rare. These are two countries that don't have diplomatic relations. There is broad feeling here that there is likely to be at least a couple of days of fighting before any ceasefire can come back into effect. We did see that last group of Israeli hostages coming out of Gaza yesterday, 7 women, 1 male teenager, including for the first time 2 Palestinian citizens of Israel. So these are from the Bedouin community. These are Muslims who were themselves kidnapped by Hamas during the October 7th terror attack.
All right, Raph Sanchez from Tel Aviv. Raph, thank you so much. For more, let's bring in NBC News military analyst, Medal of Honor recipient Colonel Jack Jacobs. Colonel, always good to have you with us. So now that Israel has resumed combat against Hamas, it's also urged residents in parts of southern Gaza to evacuate. What do you see as the Israeli military's next move?
Well, it's interesting to note that the ground offensive took place principally in the north, as we know, and the attack after the ceasefire was broken is down in the south near Rafah. And that would indicate that the Israelis have intelligence, perhaps from hostages who were released, that Hamas headquarters and other facilities are located in the south. That makes it extremely difficult, of course, for everybody in the south. The Egyptians have the border closed. They don't have refugee camps. The Egyptians don't. And it's going to be extremely difficult to get any refugees out of southern Gaza into Egypt. It does also mean that it's possible that the rockets that Israel said broke the ceasefire came from southern Gaza. These are not precision-guided munitions, but instead are ballistic. That means that they follow a parabolic trajectory. Israeli radar can pick the trajectories up on 2 points on the trajectory and pinpoint exactly where the rockets came from. And it's possible that the attacks in the south were locations Israel picked up as the origin of the rockets. In any case, no matter what, Israel is continuing on the offensive, and one hopes that there will be another ceasefire. For Hamas, they're vitally interested in continuing the ceasefire as long as they can. For Netanyahu, who originally said that the sole objective was to destroy Hamas, now says that one of the principal objectives is to get hostages back, a change that's the result of pressure from both inside Israel and from the United States. We expect to see, we think we'll see another ceasefire soon, Joe.
So, Colonel, as we've been reporting, the U.S. is urging Israel to try and be more surgical to avoid civilian casualties with attacks in Gaza. With the fighting now resumed, I mean, do you think we're going to see a different approach, a more surgical approach from Israel?
Well, we haven't yet. It's extremely difficult to negotiate the areas inside Gaza to ensure that there won't be any civilian casualties, as we've seen before. In all wars, the good guys have guns, the bad guys have guns. Non-combatants do not, and they're always caught in the middle. What is going to happen is that on the ground, it'll be very, very slow going as Israel attempts to minimize civilian casualties. But attacks from the air, no matter how many precision-guided munitions are used by Israel, there's going to be ancillary damage and civilians will be hurt.
So during the week-long truce, Hamas and other militants in Gaza released more than 100 hostages, most of them Israelis, in return for 240 Palestinians who were freed from prisons in Israel. But we still have more than 100 hostages remaining in Gaza. What do you think it's going to take to get to another ceasefire?
Well, Qatar is negotiating between the two. Israel would like to see Hamas eliminated. Hamas would like to see a ceasefire that lasts indefinitely. The answer is going to be somewhere in the middle. A guarantee by Hamas that there will not be any breaking of the ceasefire and a specific number and names of hostages who will be released on both sides will go a long way to ensuring that there might be another ceasefire. One of the reasons for the ceasefires being broken is that Israel said that the number of hostages who were released was not the same as was originally guaranteed by Hamas. If both sides agree through Qatar on exactly who is going to be released, and those are released, you'll see another ceasefire.
All right. Colonel Jack Jacobs, as always, we appreciate your expertise. Thanks so much for joining us this morning.
You're welcome.
Nearly a week after the shooting of 3 Palestinian students in Vermont, we are learning more about the background of the suspect, and the mothers of 2 of the victims are speaking out. NBC News senior national correspondent Stephanie Gosk has the latest.
The suspect accused of shooting 3 Palestinian college students in Burlington, Vermont, has not been charged with a hate crime. But the mothers of 2 of the young men say they have no doubt why their sons were targeted.
If they were not wearing the keffiyeh, right, if they were not speaking Arabic, I seriously cannot understand in any logical sense why he would pull out a gun and shoot.
Elizabeth Price and Tamara Tamimi's sons, Hisham and Kenan, were shot Saturday evening, along with their friend Tassin. Kenan is out of the hospital, but rattled.
He's a bit jumpy. He's frightful.
He's traumatized.
He is.
Yeah.
He absolutely is.
Hisham is seriously wounded.
He is paralyzed, currently paralyzed, from mid-torso downwards.
48-year-old Jason Eaton pleaded not guilty to 3 charges of attempted murder. In 2019, a former girlfriend told police he had a history of mental illness, according to police records reviewed by NBC News.
He was fully accountable. He had a gun, and he tried to take the lives of our sons.
Elizabeth says Hisham appreciates all the support, but worries about Palestinians at home.
He said that of the tens of thousands of people killed in Gaza, there were about 30 that have the name Hisham.
Both mothers say their sons felt the effect of toxic rhetoric on their campuses since the war began.
I think that as a Palestinian, people see them as culpable and accountable.
But from their homes in the West Bank, they hoped their children were safe in the U.S.
I was and am incredibly angry that I feel like there's nowhere safe for Palestinians. I literally don't know where to go with my son.
Stephanie Gosk, NBC News, Burlington, Vermont.
Turning to politics now, a New York appeals court has reinstated a gag order against former President Donald Trump and his legal team. This is the gag order in Trump's ongoing civil fraud trial. The 4-judge panel came to the decision after hearing arguments from both sides. Prosecutors argued the order was needed because of recent social media posts from the former president directed at the court clerk. Trump's team rebuked the claims, saying the order is unconstitutional. NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalos joins us now with more on all this. All right, so the decision from the panel doesn't explain their rationale, but it does mean, at least for now, the gag order stays in place as they consider Trump's full appeal of orders. So what else do they have to discuss, and how is this right now going to impact the case, which is still ongoing?
Welcome to the difference between state and federal court, Joe. And I say this with some anxiety because these are courts that I not only appear in, but I'm going to be appearing in the near future. But in New York State, you're seeing a tale of two gag orders. The original gag order by Justice Engoron and then the supplemental gag order were both from the bench, extemporaneous, words that came out of his mouth. Now, the appellate division, after both sides briefed the issue, they issue an order that is basically just a few lines with no reasoned opinion there. Whereas contrast that to the federal courts, where you have lengthy opinions, explanations, briefed issues, the adversarial process at work. Because there's so little in the appellate division's order, to the extent that the Trump team can appeal this, that makes it, in my view, more susceptible to appeal. Doesn't mean they're going to win, but I've long said that Justice Engoron's gag orders, compared to the federal gag orders, are more susceptible to attack simply because they were rather broad and just sort of said from the bench without any reasoned written opinion.
So after the decision, we heard from Engoron, who told both sides he plans to enforce the gag orders rigorously and vigorously. He's already fined Trump $15,000. So if he feels the gag order is violated again, what else could we see?
Yeah, that order already came. The fine is in. I don't think that's affected now. I think that in theory, Trump still has to pay it. When he will, who knows? But going forward, now he can call Trump in for violation of the gag order and punish him. And that punishment, everyone knows, can start with money. It can start with an admonishment. But punishment, contempt, sanctions, they're a spectrum, Joe. They start with warnings. The mid-range is money fines. And at the end is possible incarceration. And no judge, federal or state, wants anything to do with trying to incarcerate Trump. They know that would be a huge administrative problem.
A former president in the middle of a presidential campaign. So the trial is still ongoing. It maybe isn't making as many headlines as when Trump testified or his children. But where do things stand right now? When might it end? And then remind us how the final decision is made here.
What's interesting is that this is a rare bench trial, and it's even rarer because so many of the issues were decided on summary judgment. Summary judgment itself is very rarely granted. I mean, the standard is very high. I've probably argued dozens of them. I could count on one hand the number of times they're actually granted for either side, for or against. So going forward, this is a bench-only trial. The judge will make the decision. The upside to that is we can expect a written decision as opposed to a jury verdict, which is just yay or nay. The judge will consider all of this, and he alone makes the decision, which will almost certainly be appealed if Trump loses.
All right. Danny Savalos, as always, thank you so much. Today on Capitol Hill, lawmakers will decide the fate of controversial Congressman George Santos. The House is set to hold its third vote on a resolution to expel Santos from Congress. That vote scheduled for later today. He refuses to resign. The first two votes failed, but this time could be different. It comes after that House Ethics Committee found Santos spent thousands of dollars worth of campaign money on high-end shopping items, Botox, and the adult website OnlyFans. He's also facing a federal indictment that accuses him of stealing the identities of campaign donors. Santos has pleaded not guilty to those charges, says he has done nothing wrong. If the resolution to expel Santos passes, he will be forced to leave Congress immediately. This morning, Hollywood is mourning the loss of a high-profile social justice advocate. Police say Michael Latt was fatally shot inside his L.A. home on Monday by a woman he did not know. Now, many in Hollywood are taking to social media to reflect on his life and his legacy. NBC News national correspondent Miguel Almaguer has that story.
The DA says the shocking murder of Michael Latt was a targeted crime. Authorities say the well-connected Hollywood social justice advocate was allegedly shot in the head by a homeless woman who knocked on his door, forced her way inside, and killed the 33-year-old for being friends with a woman who the suspect had been stalking.
This is a quiet neighborhood. We've never had anything go on. He's a super sweet guy.
The son of a powerful Hollywood couple and the brother of famed talent agent Franklin Latt, Michael is being remembered for his philanthropy. He founded Lead with Love, an organization promoting social justice through the arts. His mother writing, Michael devoted his career to supporting artists, championing organizations that raised up artists of color and leveraged storytelling for enduring change.
Where can you see see growth and improvement.
The tragedy reverberating across Hollywood. America Ferrera posting, "What an incredible loss for his family, friends, and the many communities he was a vital and beloved member of." Actor Jesse Williams saying, "Michael was a shining beacon of selfless kindness."
The suspect, who lived in her car near Latt's home, is being held on $3 million bail. Investigators have not yet said how she obtained a handgun.
A shocking and senseless Hollywood murder that's claimed the life of a man devoted to helping others. Miguel Almaguer, NBC News, Los Angeles.
A star linebacker for the Buffalo Bills is out on bond this morning after turning himself in to Dallas police. Von Miller, a former Super Bowl MVP, is accused of assaulting his pregnant girlfriend. NBC News correspondent Maura Barrett has the details.
The two-time Super Bowl champion Von Miller facing assault charges against a pregnant woman. Police say that's a third-degree felony after calls came in for a major disturbance on Wednesday morning. And over the next 36 hours, Miller did not turn himself into police until Thursday evening, we're told. NBC affiliate reporting that he is now free on bond. But when the call came into police, Miller had originally left the home before police arrived. Now, we obtained a copy of the arrest warrant affidavit, which detailed what the woman, his girlfriend, as we understand it, detailed to police about how a verbal argument devolved into a physical altercation where Miller allegedly put his hands around her neck multiple times, as well as yanked her hair to the extent of pulling out a chunk of her hair from her head. And so clearly a very violent description. Police say that they observed bruising consistent with this description and were looking for Miller for that period of time after the fact. Now that he has turned himself in, there still is repercussions from the NFL he'll likely face because domestic violence is a violation of the NFL personal conduct policy. And as that investigation is ongoing, players are ineligible to play if they have that accusation. This is not the first time Miller has faced this. He actually was accused of domestic violence back in 2021, but was not charged at the time. Now, we reached out to Miller, his attorney, and his agents, but have not received any comment at this time. Meanwhile, the NFL and the Buffalo Bills, his team, said that they're aware of the incident and they are investigating further. Back to you.
Thanks to Maura Barrett for that report. The alleged victim has since spoken to a local news outlet through text messages, describing the incident as, quote, a huge misunderstanding. "We're fine," she wrote. "Things were blown way out of context. This is actually outrageous. No one assaulted anyone." We'll make sure to keep you updated on this story. It is a soggy start to December with showers across the country. Meteorologist Michelle Grossman is here with the forecast. Michelle, good morning.
Good morning, Joe. Happy Friday. And yeah, feeling like December too, because we're looking at lots of snow in some spots. We'll start out west because we have atmospheric rivers moving onshore. We're going to see that a couple times over the weekend. The strongest one on Sunday. So we could see up to 6, even 10 inches of rain locally along the coast. We're going to see a whole lot of snow too. Feet of snow in the Cascades. In the Four Corners, seeing a little leftover showers, even some wintry weather too in the higher elevations, the mountain snow. But it's off to the east. We were watching that storm system yesterday that brought severe weather to portions of Texas. We're looking at that moving off to the north and the east and seeing some storms now along the Gulf Coast. This will be the concern as we go throughout the day. I don't think it's going to have the severity it had yesterday, but still could see some strong storms with gusty winds and also the chance for a tornado or two. Otherwise, this is moving to the north and east. It will develop into the northeast and also mid-Atlantic, where we're going to see some heavy rain, especially where you see those brighter colors. So here's the setup, that area of low pressure, showers moving into the northeast, also New England, and then we're going to see those scattered storms for the Gulf Coast. That's going to happen once again tomorrow. So we could see some rain along the coast in the upwards of 5 inches or more, showering, lingering across the mid-Atlantic. And then guess what? On Sunday, we're going to see more rain into the northeast. So it's going to be a soggy weekend in that part of the country. As far as the severe threat, we're looking at where the green shading is. So Lafayette to Hattiesburg, New Orleans, also Mobile to Panama City, looking at winds gusting up to 60 miles per hour. The hail threat is low, but we could see some hail and also some really heavy rainfall in addition to some tornadoes. Same story tomorrow, doesn't move all that far. We're looking at the same scenario from Montgomery, Enterprise, down to Mobile once again for the chance for strong storms and a whole lot of rain along the coast too. Again, could see 5 inches. That's where you're seeing the reds, the oranges, also the yellows. That rain is going to lead to the chance for some localized flash flooding because in addition to that, we're going to see rainfall rates of 2 inches per hour. Otherwise, we're looking at that blanket of snow into the Intermountain West, parts of the Rockies, Pacific Northwest. We're quiet through the middle of the country today. That will change as we head towards the later part of the weekend. But storm alerts stretching from the Pacific Northwest into the Intermountain West, the Southwest as well. We have winter storm warnings. We have winter storm watches, winter weather advisories, and even some flood watches, because we're looking at a lot of rain falling over the next several days along the Pacific North Coast. We're looking at California, also Oregon, Washington, where we could see up to 10 inches of rain in some spots. That's where you're looking, those reds and also the oranges. That's a lot of rain for that area over the next several days. And in terms of the snowfall, we're looking at a lot of snow too. Talking feet in the Cascades and down through the Rockies, also portions of the Southwest. We're looking at lots of snow as well.
You took the words out of my mouth. That's a lot of rain.
It's a lot of
even
rain.
for the Pacific Northwest.
6 to 10 inches.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Michelle. Appreciate it.
Much more to come here on Morning News Now, including a jet-fast recovery for star quarterback Aaron Rodgers. Now back on the practice field just months after what was thought to be a season-ending injury. Later this hour, the latest on his possible early return. Up first, though, after the break, world leaders getting candid about climate change. We're going to tell you about this year's UN Climate Change Conference in Dubai. Stay with us. Welcome back. The United Nations Climate Change Conference, known as COP28, is off and running, kicking off yesterday in Dubai. COP28 is one of the biggest gatherings of world leaders of the year, with the likes of King Charles, British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, and thousands of others expected to attend. Though it began just yesterday, deals to fight climate change are already being made. CNBC's senior climate correspondent Diana Olick joins us now with more on this. Diana, good morning. So what can we expect in the coming week? What impact could these decisions really have on the economy?
Well, good morning, Joe. Yeah, representatives from nearly 200 governments are at the COP trying to ramp up their response to climate change. And a lot of that comes in the form of more money. And that's why representatives from corporations, big banks, investment funds, they're all there, too, trying to get in on that cash. Opportunities in the clean energy transition, infrastructure, climate tech, and resilience. So there's a lot of money here at stake. Joe?
And Breakthrough Energy, that's a sustainable energy project founded by Bill Gates, is expected to announce major funding for 3 projects in Europe. What more can you tell us about that?
Yeah, and that happened just about an hour ago at the COP leadership. The UAE announced a new $30 billion climate-focused investment vehicle called Altera, which will be the world's largest private investment fund for climate action. And it aims to mobilize $250 billion globally by 2030. But again, this morning, Breakthrough announced an investment of 240 million euros, or just over $250 million, with the European Investment Bank for 2 projects, actually 2 of 3. One of those is funding Danish energy company Ørsted's e-methanol production facility to provide green fuel for the shipping industry. And I spoke with the executive director of Breakthrough Energy, who's in Dubai now, about what COP will mean overall for businesses.
It's an opportunity to connect companies with finance partners and industry partners. And we're looking to make deals to accelerate clean energy into the marketplace.
Now, to give you an idea of the money at stake, the U.S. now experiences $1 billion weather disaster every 3 weeks. That compares with every 4 months back in the 1980s. And one study found that investing a little less than $2 trillion just in climate adaptation could add over $7 trillion to the global economy by 2030, Joe.
So, Diana, I mean, climate's been making headlines all year now. The World Meteorological Organization confirmed in its State of the Global Climate report yesterday, this year, 2023, will be the warmest on record. That really is just a reminder of what's at stake at this conference, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, all of the disasters that we've seen this year, you say it's the warmest on record, but think about the fires in Maui. Think about the fires in Canada that blanketed New York City with smoke and flooding across the globe all year. There's an added urgency, it seems, this year. You know, I was in Glasgow 2 years ago for COP26, and there was excitement that the U.S. was back in the Paris Agreement and President Biden was there. This year, there seems to be much more of a sense of urgency that we are moving toward disaster a lot faster than even we thought 2 years ago. And that's why you're seeing so many world leaders there. You're seeing so many heads of big corporations, and you're seeing so much money being put up to fight climate change.
All right. CNBC's Diana Olick, thank you so much. And you will be heading to Dubai to cover the COP28 summit, so we look forward to more of her reports. International headlines now, starting with new concerns from Japan after that deadly U.S. Osprey crash. NBC News foreign correspondent Megan Fitzgerald has that and other world headlines. Megan, good morning.
Good morning to you. That's right. We start in Japan, where there's concern this morning from the Japanese government that the U.S. military continues to fly these Osprey aircrafts in their country. Now, to give you some context here, the Japanese asked the U.S. to stop non-emergency flights until the safety of the aircrafts are confirmed. This comes after a U.S. Osprey crashed into the sea off the coast of Japan this week, killing at least one American. The U.S. says they were not aware of any official requests to ground their aircraft. And in Peru, the AP is reporting a tribal leader has been shot to death in an area of the Peruvian rainforest after returning from a workshop in the Amazon. The leader's son tells the AP his father was in a boat with other family members when shots were fired. The leader was shot multiple times. Tensions between indigenous people and illegal loggers have been rising in the area. And guys, a story that you don't hear every day. A 70-year-old Ugandan woman has given birth to twins after receiving IVF treatment. The baby boy and girl were delivered Wednesday through a C-section. The hospital where she gave birth says history has been made in Africa. They say she is the oldest woman to ever give birth on the continent. Guys.
Wow. So she will be in her late 80s when they graduate school. All right, Megan, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Coming up, Airbnb under fire after the deaths of several guests attributed to carbon monoxide poisoning. Now families are pushing for change. Their message to the company when we return. And it's often billed as a way to help relax, but could marijuana actually be doing the opposite? We're going to dig into those claims next. This is Morning News Now. Welcome back. An NBC News investigation found in the last decade, at least 19 people have died from suspected carbon monoxide poisoning while staying at Airbnbs. The families of some of those victims are now speaking out and fighting back. They're pushing for the company to require carbon monoxide alarms in every one of their listings. NBC News Now anchor Hallie Jackson has that story.
When Sebastian Mejia won a prestigious Fulbright scholarship and moved to Brazil last year, his mom, Rosa, couldn't have felt more proud.
He was the kind of person that really did everything that he wanted to do. He set his goals and worked towards it.
But just a few months later, Sebastian's family got a message from the host of the Airbnb where he'd been staying. The 24-year-old was dead.
All I can describe is like a bomb dropped on me. I felt every single possible feeling. I was in shock. I literally, when I learned what happened with Sebastian, I stopped breathing. My heart died with him.
The killer? Carbon monoxide poisoning.
Initially, it's just shock, grief, sadness, crying. Now it's starting to like anger.
Carbon monoxide gas has no smell, no color, no taste, sometimes called the invisible killer. It's made when fuel is burned in things like water heaters, gas stoves, and cars. Its symptoms mimic the flu, and in high concentrations, it can be deadly, which is why detectors are critical. According to a technical report from Rio de Janeiro police, Sebastian's Airbnb had 4 times the maximum acceptable carbon monoxide levels and no detector. In the bathroom where Sebastian died, the report says, a broken water heater and improper ventilation.
My son didn't have to die.
An investigation by NBC News has identified 19 deaths since 2013 at Airbnb properties involving alleged carbon monoxide poisoning. All of those deaths happened outside the U.S. While nearly every American state requires detectors in some residential buildings, international guidelines recommend a detector on every floor, but regulations differ by country. After a death in Taiwan in 2014, Airbnb said in a blog post it would require hosts to install carbon monoxide detectors by the end of the year. Nearly a decade later, still no requirement. That blog post now deleted.
When people rent those spaces, they expect, again, a minimum level of safety and protection. And without a carbon monoxide alarm, we can't be sure that we're going to wake up the next day.
Airbnb says safety is a top priority, describing incidents as exceptionally rare. For hosts, the company encourages the installation of detectors and offers a free one, so far giving out detectors to nearly 250,000 hosts. That amounts to fewer than 6% of all hosts worldwide. One 2018 study found less than 60% of U.S.-based Airbnb hosts said they had carbon monoxide detectors installed. For renters, Airbnb provides a search filter to find only homes with detectors. At least 6 lawsuits have been filed against the company concerning carbon monoxide poisoning, including one by Sebastian's family. 3 are ongoing, 1 was dismissed, and 2 were settled for undisclosed amounts. Now, Sebastian's family says they're pushing for Airbnb to require all properties have carbon monoxide detectors.
We don't care about any settlement that Airbnb is trying to reach with us. We want people to know about this issue so that it's changed.
That amount of money will ever compensate the life and the future that my son had. Never.
Rosa working to honor her son's legacy by fighting for change. Hallie Jackson, NBC News.
The use of cannabis among adults is growing across the country. According to the National Institutes of Health, nearly 25% of adults use cannabis to treat anxiety. NBC News medical fellow Dr. Akshay Syal spoke to one woman who warns it may not be as beneficial as some people think.
For Veronica Zawinski, getting high was her only way to get through life.
I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, I couldn't socialize with my friends without being under this substance of marijuana.
She turned to marijuana after the death of her father, hoping it would help her manage her anxiety. It began as an occasional nighttime use.
I started using it randomly during the day. Let me do my chores while smoking marijuana. Let me walk my dog while smoking marijuana.
But quickly got out of control.
Then it went to let me wake up and start my day with the first thing being a hit of marijuana.
She's not alone. Marijuana use has skyrocketed in the United States, with an estimated 60 million Americans having tried it in the last year. Recreational marijuana is now legal in almost half the nation. Just weeks ago, Ohio joined 23 other states to legalize the drug since 2012. Many are turning to cannabis to help with their anxiety. But there's just one problem. Experts say it may not work.
This idea of short-term, yeah, it's probably going to make you feel a lot better, but long-term, I don't know that that's really a particularly good treatment for it. And we have no solid evidence that cannabis is actually a good treatment long-term for any mental health conditions.
Regular users, he says, may face withdrawal effects if they stop taking it, making their anxiety or depression worse. A recent analysis of over 20 studies published in the Canadian Journal of Psychiatry suggested that cannabis use may cause an increase in anxiety in long-term use.
Old cannabis of yesteryear, cannabis of the 70s and 80s, probably wasn't really addictive. Cannabis of today pretty much is addictive.
Part of the problem, he says, is that there's no rigorous quality control around marijuana, like there are for other drugs for anxiety.
If I were to write a prescription for you for Prozac, and whether you filled it at a pharmacy down the street or a mail order pharmacy or pharmacy in another state, you should have essentially the same thing that you're being given. Cannabis being used for medical treatment, say of anxiety or depression, what you're getting and where you're getting it from is very variable.
Zawinski was a D1 athlete, but lost her fitness, and her emotions stagnant. She decided to quit cold turkey, getting back to the gym while living a rejuvenated life. Now, she has a message for others struggling.
Take that step back, take a little moment to become self-aware and realize that you are a human being. You can be sober and you can live a happy, healthy life sober because you don't need any substance to survive.
Dr. Akshay Syal, NBC News.
Coming up, pop star Sabrina Carpenter facing some fallout over this music video filmed inside a 160-year-old church. More on the controversy, the apology from the church official who gave the shoot his blessing. And ready for takeoff, Jets star quarterback Aaron Rodgers back on the practice field, hoping to return this month after tearing his Achilles just 3 months ago. The latest on his recovery next on Morning News Now. Welcome back. Let's get to some financial headlines now. Ex-CEO Linda Yaccarino is commenting on that viral Elon Musk interview. CNBC's Silvana Henao has that and other money news. Silvana, good morning.
Hey, Joe, good Friday morning to you. Yeah, so the CEO of X, the platform formerly known as Twitter, addressed that Elon Musk interview where he cursed out advertisers for leaving the social media platform. Linda Yaccarino sent a memo to employees where she called the statements wide-ranging and profound and said X is a platform that allows people to make their own decisions. She also encouraged employees to find time to watch the interview if they hadn't already. Broadcom is planning to lay off an estimated 1,300 VMware employees after its acquisition of the cloud computing company. That's according to a Bloomberg report. Now, cuts are expected to begin in January and will impact workers in California. Broadcom was approved to purchase VMware for $69 billion in November after receiving regulatory approval from China. And ChatGPT turned one Wednesday. The popular AI chatbot hit a few milestones in its first year and made some upgrades since its debut. The chatbot reached 1 million users just days after its launch. And in October, that grew to an estimated 1.7 billion visits. ChatGPT also made software updates, and the company says the chatbot can now see, hear, and speak with voice and image analysis capabilities, Joe.
It is amazing to think how much things have changed in that last year since it was introduced.
Yeah.
All right. Silvana, thank you so much. Sure. Pop star Sabrina Carpenter is causing a religious controversy in Brooklyn. That's because her latest music video was filmed inside of a 160-year-old church. Well, the video already has more than 12 million views online. The Diocese of Brooklyn is calling it a, quote, promotion of violence. NBC News correspondent Stephen Romo reports on that controversy.
In her latest music video, pop star Sabrina Carpenter held a funeral at this New York City church for all the guys not worth her time. Now, the church's pastor disciplined by the diocese and the church itself getting re-blessed. Carpenter's music video Feather dropped on October 30th. Showing her dancing at Our Lady of Mount Carmel Annunciation Church in Brooklyn, with 4 pastel-colored caskets in the background while wearing a short black skirt and veil. With 12 million views so far, it's a hit with her fans, while others called it blasphemous, upsetting, and disgusting.
See, you get me.
Carpenter, who got her start on Disney Channel's Girl Meets World, has moved away from her family-friendly image. Instead, embracing a sexy pop princess persona, performing to sold-out stadiums as an opening act for Taylor Swift on her wildly successful Eras tour. But now, the rising star catching the attention of the Catholic Diocese of Brooklyn.
This was the glorification of mass murder. The story behind this is a woman who murders several of her boyfriends, one after another, and then the mocking mourning of it. It's truly horrific.
Bishop Robert Brennan telling NBC News he was, quote, appalled with the Feather video, saying that while the production company failed to depict the entirety of the scenes to the parish, these clearly portray inappropriate behavior. The church's pastor, Monsignor Jamie Gigantiello, who approved the shoot, apologizing to his congregation, saying he wanted to strengthen the church's bonds to young creatives in the community, adding his general search of the artists involved didn't turn up anything alarming. The Brooklyn Diocese allowing Monsignor Gigantiello to remain as a pastor of the church, but relieving him of his administrative duties. For her part, Carpenter doesn't seem too concerned, telling Variety, quote, we got approval in advance, and Jesus was a carpenter.
Our thanks to Stephen Romo for that report. Well, now to some major news coming out of the NFL. The Jets star quarterback Aaron Rodgers trying to make a comeback after suffering a torn Achilles in Week 1. Rodgers' injury during the Jets' first game of the season in the first quarter against the Buffalo Bills back in September was thought to be season-ending, but now it looks like he is trying to beat the odds. On Wednesday, he made his first appearance on the practice field with his teammates, and the Jets announced that Rodgers' 21-day practice window started. That's going to give him a chance to decide whether to remove Rodgers from injured reserve, opening the door for him to return to the field as soon as Christmas Eve. Zach Rosenblatt joins us now. He is the Jets writer for The Athletic. Zach, good to have you with us. So no doubt an Aaron Rodgers comeback would be somewhat of a Christmas miracle for Jets fans. How likely is it right now, reality check, that he's going to be back in time for the Christmas Eve game against the Washington Commanders?
Yeah, it's such a complicated question that's hard to answer because,
it would be very improbable for him to come back at all. But also, he's made it clear that if the Jets are not in position to still have a chance to make the playoffs, he will not come back. He told us that yesterday when he spoke to us. So I think if the Jets somehow win these next 2 games, I think it then becomes a very, very real possibility. But if they keep losing, then and he sticks to his word, then I don't know that he'll be playing in that game.
So I mentioned this 21-day practice window. Explain to folks who might not be familiar with it how it works.
Yeah, so basically players, when they have serious injuries, they get put on something called injured reserve, which it allows the team to have another roster spot to fill it with another player. And so when they want to bring that player back, they activate a 21-day practice window where they can start practicing with the team, because when you're on injured reserve, you can't unless you activate that window. And then they basically have 3 weeks to decide if they're going to bring him onto the roster. And if they don't, then the season's over no matter what.
With any injury as serious as this, there's, of course, a fear athletes could push themselves too far, too quickly, return to playing too soon. Folks you're speaking with, are they worried about that potential with Aaron Rodgers here, especially considering he is a relatively older player in the NFL?
Weirdly, I have not heard much concern. And even Rodgers, he had some very interesting comments about this yesterday where he said he doesn't really see the risks of coming back, because even if he hypothetically got hurt again, it would give him enough time to heal before next season. So they're not viewing it with the lens of risk. I think there is risk because, as you mentioned, he is an older quarterback. I think he's more liable for injury, especially coming off that Achilles. But the team feels, and he feels, that if doctors approve him playing, that he's willing to do it. He even said if he were to come back this season, he would be less than 100%. So there is risk involved. But they're willing to take it if hypothetically they're still able to make some noise.
Yeah, that's the question. I mean, let's be clear right now. The Jets are 4-7. They're on a 4-game losing streak. Yeah. So does it seem like they really have to win all their games before Christmas Eve to even consider doing this with Rodgers? Because, I mean, the playoffs aren't really a possibility unless they keep winning, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, just knowing Rodgers, I would say there's a possibility he does it on a technicality and comes back anyway, because if they're mathematically still have a 1% chance of making it, which they do right now, by the way, then he might say that's a chance. So he comes back. And I think a lot of this is him wanting to prove to people that he could do the impossible and all that stuff. So that kind of opens the door a little bit more. If they lose these next 2 games, I can't see a way he can justify coming back based on his comments, but you never know with Aaron Rodgers.
So you're telling me there's a chance. All right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Zach Rosenblatt, Jets writer for The Athletic. Thanks so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate it. There's another comeback sports story that fans are happy to hear about this morning. College basketball prospect Bronny James is making his return to the court 4 months after he collapsed during a workout at the University of Southern California. He is, of course, the son of NBA star LeBron James, and now he is cleared to make a full return to basketball. A spokesperson for the James family said that Bronny will start practice at USC next week and return to games shortly after that. July, he was rushed to the hospital after collapsing during a workout at the university. The James family said that Bronny suffered cardiac arrest caused by a congenital heart defect. Coming up, driving toward the future. When we come back, we're going to rock down to Electric Avenue, literally, for a look at the first of its kind street that charges cars while they drive. This is Morning News Now. Welcome back. We early risers know sleep is an important part of life. But when it comes to actually getting enough Z's, it appears chin-strap penguins, they got us beat. A new study shows the fascinating creatures take, get this, more than 10,000 naps a day each for just 4 seconds at a time. That adds up to about 11 hours of sleep every day. Researchers in Antarctica collected the data by implanting devices in a few chin straps' brains and neck muscles to observe their brain waves. They say these species take seconds-long naps to avoid predators and protect their eggs. I take a few hundred of those naps during this show. All right, we end this hour with a look into what many hope is the future. The city of Detroit unveiled the country's first ever Electric Avenue, allowing some cars to charge while they drive. NBC News correspondent Maggie Vespa gives us a closer look.
On its list of claims to automotive fame,
okay, here we go.
Detroit can add America's first Electric Avenue.
The battery was at 66%. We've been driving a few minutes, and now it's at 68.
Exactly. A public road able to wirelessly charge EV batteries as they drive over asphalt.
The technology is under our feet. Like it's under the surface of the road.
Literally. The secret? Rubber-coated copper coils embedded in the road that correspond with the special receiver under the vehicle. The technology developed by Israel-based Electrion, who touts similar projects in several countries, including Sweden, where NBC's Kelly Kobiea got a look last year.
So we're being charged right now.
We are being charged.
Tell me why this is safe.
This is perfectly safe. This system is only active when you have a validated vehicle with the receiver above it.
The price tag for this quarter-mile stretch, just under $6 million, mostly private money, according to state officials who say the cost will plummet as they expand to more roads and hopefully in the next few years license receivers to the public.
Could you see this actually being used broadly? I can, yes. We want to get rid of this myth of range anxiety. You want to know that when you get to a location, you're able to charge your vehicle.
Motor City, once again, hoping to lead the charge into America's future. Maggie Vespa, NBC News, Detroit.
And now you're going to have the song Electric Avenue in your head the rest of this Friday. That does it for this hour of Morning News Now. Stay with us. The news continues right now. Good morning, I'm Joe Fryer. Savannah is off today. Right now on Morning News Now, a return to violence in Gaza. Israeli officials accusing Hamas of violating that fragile week-long ceasefire deal, which led to the release of Israeli hostages and Palestinian prisoners. A new round of airstrikes and gunfire reported throughout the enclave this morning as Israel's military warns residents in southern Gaza to evacuate. We're on the ground with what could come next. In Washington, decision day defiance from embattled Congressman George Santos. He's now flat out refusing to resign in the hours before that expected expulsion vote in the House today. We're going to bring you the latest from Capitol Hill. We've also got a health alert for you on this Friday morning. Officials in one state seeing an alarming rise in pediatric pneumonia cases. So what's behind the reported surge and what can you do to keep your family safe this winter? And later this hour, we're taking a trip into the Beehive with the star-studded London premiere of Renaissance, a film by Beyonce. That and we'll have your can't-miss list on this Friday. We begin this hour in Gaza, which is coming under renewed Israeli bombing this morning. Sirens also sounded in Israeli communities near Gaza that Israel says took incoming rocket fire from Hamas. This all comes after a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas expired overnight. Dozens of Palestinians have been killed and injured, according to Gazan health officials. Also this morning, the New York Times is reporting that Israel knew about the October 7th Hamas attack plan long before it happened. NBC News chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel has the latest.
This ceasefire has broken down and Israel has resumed its military campaign. You can see some smoke rising in Gaza behind me from Israeli airstrikes, and the flow of humanitarian aid, including fuel into Gaza, has stopped.
Israel this morning resumed airstrikes against Hamas in Gaza after a 7-day truce collapsed overnight. Many of the strikes focused on southern Gaza, around Han Yunis. Health officials in Gaza say dozens of Palestinians were killed. Israel blamed Hamas for breaking the truce by launching rockets into Israel and failing to free at least 10 hostages a day. The truce broke down as the New York Times released a bombshell report overnight that Israeli officials were warned Hamas was planning a mass assault, breaking through border fences and using paragliders, but dismissed it as aspirational and beyond Hamas's capabilities. The Times reporting it's unclear if Prime Minister Netanyahu or other senior leaders saw the report, codenamed Jericho Wall. Netanyahu has denied he was warned of the October 7th attack. NBC News has not seen the report. The Israeli military responded saying its focus now is on the war and it will investigate later. The fighting is resuming as hostages are still inside Gaza. Mia Shem was one of the last hostages to get out. Her mother first got word she was free by phone. Then came the family reunion, 55 days in the making. There's now disappointment and anguish from Israeli families whose hopes had started to rise that their relatives would be coming out too. Carmel Gat is a 39-year-old occupational therapist who was visiting relatives at a kibbutz near Gaza and was kidnapped along with her sister-in-law, Yarden. Yarden was released on Wednesday and reunited with her daughter and husband. Carmel's cousin this morning described his frustration and fears.
It feels like it was a grand plan for Hamas to keep some of the women and the men there so they could be kind of a human shield for Hamas. And we are very, very stressful that they're going to use them and even hurt them as a way of showing that the violence hurts the abductees.
Hamas says that Israel is to blame for the collapse of the ceasefire, saying that it was prepared to release more hostages, but that Israel rejected the terms.
All right, Richard, thank you so much. For more, we're joined by MSNBC political analyst, professor, journalist, and author of the Beinart Notebook on Substack, Peter Beinart. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's start with that bombshell report from the New York Times that Richard mentioned, that Israeli officials obtained Hamas's battle plan for the October 7th terrorist attack more than a year before it occurred. What is your reaction to that report? And do you think perhaps somewhere down the line we're going to see a political reckoning in Israel similar to what we saw after the 9/11 report here in America?
Yes, I think, in fact, the political reckoning in Israel will be greater than it was in the United States. Israel has a tradition of commissions that it creates after military disasters. And when this one is called and reports, I suspect that virtually everyone at the senior leadership in the Israeli government level will resign. And when Israel goes to elections, many analysts think there will be a political earthquake in which Benjamin Netanyahu and his Likud party are defeated very badly. That's the scale of this security disaster that happened on October 7th.
As Richard just reported, after a week of relative calm, hostilities have resumed and it's looking intense. Where do things go from here, do you think, from a military perspective and from a diplomatic perspective?
It's really terrifying. I mean, remember, 75% of the people of Gaza have already been forced out of their homes. Northern Gaza has been rendered basically uninhabitable. So what was already one of the most overcrowded places on earth, now the people are living in half of the territory. And now Israel is moving into that part, the southern part of Gaza, because that's where Hamas, it believes, some of its fighters and leaders are now. So we've already seen an extraordinary scale of catastrophe. More children have died in Gaza since October 7th and were killed in armed conflict around the entire world all of last year. And that was just in half of Gaza. And now Israel's going into the other half. So I'm very, very fearful about the scale of the killing that we're going to see.
Meanwhile, we still have more than 100 Israeli hostages held in Gaza. Virtually all the ones freed so far have been women and children, which means most of the remaining hostages are men. How does that complicate efforts to try and negotiate another ceasefire?
Well, presumably Israel would have to not only agree to another ceasefire, which it's reluctant to do, but it would have to agree to a prisoner exchange, probably not as it did before with Palestinian women and children who were held in prison, but with men and including some perhaps who have been significant fighters. This is going to be hard for the Israeli government to do. I think many Israelis regret the decision they made a number of years ago to release 1,000 prisoners for one Israeli soldier, Gilad Shalit, who had been abducted. So I think it's hard to imagine the terms of another big hostage exchange, although I desperately hope that there is one, that all of these hostages are released. They never should have been taken in the first place. They should be released unconditionally, but I don't think they will be released unconditionally. I think it would take very, very difficult compromises for Israel to get them out.
Peter, while we have you, I want to touch on some new reporting out this morning that the U.S. is preparing travel bans on extremist Jewish settlers involved in attacks on Palestinians in the occupied West Bank. What's the message this sends, and what does it tell us right now about America's relationship with Israel?
Well, while the world has been focused on Gaza, there's been a tremendous amount of violence in the West Bank, including from settlers who basically can rampage through Palestinian areas. Because remember, the Israeli military protects settlers. It doesn't protect Palestinians. The Palestinians don't have basic rights. They live without citizenship. The settlers do have rights. So they have weapons. The Palestinians generally don't. And so there's been an enormous amount of even ethnic cleansing that's been going on of entire Palestinian villages in the West Bank depopulated as a result of settler violence violence. So this is, I think, a good first step by the Biden administration, but there's much more to be done because it's fundamentally an untenable situation to hold millions of people in for their entire lives without basic rights, as Israel does in the West Bank.
Peter Beinart, thanks so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Today on Capitol Hill, the House is set to hold its third vote on a resolution to expel controversial Congressman George Santos. He refuses to resign. This latest effort comes on the heels of a House Ethics Committee report last month that found Santos misused thousands of dollars worth of campaign money. He's also facing a federal indictment that accuses him of stealing the identities of campaign donors. Santos has pleaded not guilty to those charges and says he has done nothing wrong. Yesterday, Santos defiantly spoke out against the vote. He says his potential expulsion sets a dangerous precedent in Congress.
If the House wants to start different precedent and expel me, that is going to be the undoing of a lot of members of this body, because this will haunt them in the future, where mere allegations are sufficient to have members removed from office when duly elected by their people in their respective states and districts.
NBC News senior Capitol Hill correspondent Garrett Hake joins us now ahead of what will likely be a busy day for Garrett. So this vote, it requires a 2/3 majority to succeed. Failed the first few times, the first couple times. So could it pass this time? What are we looking out for?
I think it is looking increasingly likely it will pass this time, Joe, but we really don't know. A lot of senior Republicans, including the Speaker, have been keeping their powder dry, not saying exactly how they're going to vote. There are two basic sets of arguments here. There's the argument about what George Santos did and whether or not that, rises to the level of expulsion. And then there's the argument that you see him addressing there, this question about precedent and whether it's appropriate to kick a member out before a jury has decided anything. And those are kind of the arguments happening in parallel, as we saw a little bit in the chamber yesterday, including from the chairman of the House Ethics Committee, whose mind is made up about whether Santos should stay or go. Here's some of what we heard yesterday.
These are the exhibits that they attach to the investigative report. The 50-plus page report goes into great detail, and it paints a picture of the fraud committed by Santos.
I personally have real reservations about doing this. I'm concerned about a precedent that may be set for that.
So that precedent part is the thing that seems to be hanging on the mind of a lot of Republicans. But, Joe, I talked to some of the New York Republicans who want to see Santos get kicked out, and their argument to me was, if the precedent that we set here is a higher ethical standard for members, would that really be so bad? We'll find out in a few hours which argument wins out.
So, Santos also brought his own expulsion resolution forward, trying to expel Democratic Congressman Jamal Bowman. You may recall he pulled a fire alarm in one of the House office buildings recently. Santos said there had to be consistency in holding people accountable. We see a lot of tension between Republicans and Democrats, but when it comes to this issue of expulsion, the precedent, what is it? Talk about how high a bar that is for everyone.
It's extremely high. It takes a 2/3 vote in the House to expel anybody. And by the way, I don't think that Bowman resolution is going to go anywhere. Bowman dismissed it as a stunt by Santos, and I've heard as much from other lawmakers. Bowman's also, by the way, had that issue adjudicated in the criminal justice system already. His sort of day in court has already come and gone. But, Joe, to your point, there's only been 5 members of the House ever expelled, and 3 of them were for being members of the Confederacy. That's the kind of thing it usually takes to get a person kicked out. But again, in this case, Santos' opponents argue that he's not even in Congress on legitimate grounds, that his lies about who he was are so broad and so deep that you can't even make the case that, his voters wanted him here. They argue that his voters were deceived about the fact of even who he is on a basic level. And so that it's a fair comparison to the whether it be the Confederates or the other sort of serial fraudsters who have been kicked out over the course of the history of the House.
You've touched real quick on the Republican divide here. Just quickly, where do Republicans go after this vote?
It's a good question. I think even those who are worried about the precedent will probably be happy to see Santos gone. He has been such a distraction for them from even before he got to Congress. That said, they do still need his vote. The margins in the House are incredibly slim. They're going to get slimmer. We expect 1 member at least to retire and go home before the end of this year. If more members decide to retire on the Republican side, their majority is in jeopardy. And so while they won't miss the Santos drama, they'll miss the tiny little bit of pad that he has provided divided on some of these key party line votes over the course of this Congress so far, Joe.
All right, we'll see what happens. Garrett, thank you so much. Meanwhile, a highly unusual debate was held last night. Florida's Republican Governor Ron DeSantis took on California's Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom in what's being billed as a red state versus blue state debate. The two men sparred on everything from immigration to COVID to the economy. Meet the press moderator Kristen Welker has the highlights.
Good day to you. Last night's matchup, moderated by conservative Fox host Sean Hannity, was not a presidential debate, even though Ron DeSantis is seeking the 2024 Republican nomination. But it was widely seen as a battle between two men with deep political ambitions and eyes on the White House.
When it comes to this, I know you like to jabber.
By the way, overnight, a fiery face-off between two top governors with presidential overtones.
He's joined at the hip with Biden and Harris. You're nothing but a bully.
Florida's Republican Governor Ron DeSantis, who's running for the GOP nomination in 2024, taking on California's Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom, who's backing President Biden's re-election. There were fireworks from the start when DeSantis sharply criticized Newsom for visiting a fancy French restaurant at the height of the COVID pandemic.
He's imposed restrictions on his own people while exempting himself from those restrictions and going to the French Laundry while his people were suffering.
The governors clashed over border security. Newsom criticizing DeSantis' controversial move last year, sending migrants to Martha's Vineyard.
You're trolling folks and trying to find migrants to play political games to try to get some news and attention so you can out-Trump Trump. And by the way, how's that going for you, Ron? You're down 41 points in your own home state.
DeSantis firing back, accusing Newsom of being soft on border security.
This is the vision of Biden, Harris, Newsom. Open borders.
But it was the issue of abortion that prompted some of the sharpest exchanges. Newsom slamming DeSantis for signing a 6-week abortion ban into law in Florida.
Before women even know they're pregnant, Ron, even Donald Trump said it was too extreme. Well, I believe in a culture of life.
The biggest question of the night, the political future of both men.
Why don't you gentlemen, that you're running?
Hannity pressing Newsom on whether he would replace President Biden on the ticket if asked.
It's not even optional. He's doing fantastically. He says Joe Biden is 100% up to the job. You know that that's not true.
Governor DeSantis has struggled to stand out of the packed field in the latest debates, but with the Iowa caucuses just over a month away and his opponent Nikki Haley surging in polls, a one-on-one debate presented DeSantis a real opportunity to potentially reinvigorate his campaign by taking on one of the most high-profile Democratic governors and showing GOP voters what kind of a general election candidate he'd be. This also served as a chance for Newsom to assert himself on the national stage beyond California and establish himself as one of President Biden's campaign's main surrogates, despite rumors and speculation of a potential run by Newsom himself. But make no mistake, he's already getting plenty of buzz for a future presidential run. Back to you.
All right, Kristen, thank you so much. Let's get to your weekend forecast with meteorologist Michelle Grossman. Michelle, I think I see words like soaker, storm, snow on your board there. Sounds wet.
Lots of S's. Yeah, very wet. We have a lot of spots that are looking at some wet weather, and that's going to continue throughout the weekend as well. It's going to feel very winter-like in some spots, other spots a little milder. So let's start with today, because out west we're looking at a big winter storm that's going to impact the entire weekend. It's a series of atmospheric rivers moving on shore. That's going to bring a lot of rain, up to 10 inches in some spots over the next few days. Also feet of snow, so a blanket of snow from the Pacific Northwest into the Intermountain West, also portions of the Southwest. We're dry through the middle of the country today. That's good news, although on the cooler side in some spots. Chilly in the northern plains, temperatures right around freezing in so many spots, but at least they have the sunshine. Ohio Valley, we're looking at the chance of a little bit of snow in the Great Lakes into portions of the Midwest. The Ohio Valley is where we're going to see some soaking rain. That's going to be especially down along the Gulf Coast, too. We could see some coastal storms. It's going to bring some wind damage, also the chance for hail, a few tornadoes as well. And then we're looking at some rain falling in the Northeast, Mid-Atlantic. That's not quite here yet, but it will be here. It's going to put a little dent into our plans as we head throughout today and then again on Sunday. So as we look towards Saturday, a little bit quieter, but still enough precipitation, especially in the Pacific Northwest with that Pacific storm. It's just a series of storms moving on shore. That's going to keep it very wet there. Also, so that mountain snow continuing. Dry still in the middle of the country, drying out in the south central plains. That's good news because we saw some soaking conditions yesterday. The Gulf Coast, we're still wet tomorrow, and we're looking at the chance for some heavy rain there. Also, once again, kind of a repeat performance of seeing some storms. We dried out a bit in portions of New England, also the Northeast, but notice in northern parts of Maine, northern parts of New England, we're looking at the chance for some rain, even some wintry mix as well. Could see some ice there. By Sunday, that rain returns to the Northeast. It could be heavy at times where you see that yellow, so we could see some heavy rain, although for the most part it will be on the light side. Notice portions of northern New England could see some wintry weather, and that rain does extend all the way down to the southeast. A flooding risk, of course, after all that rain in the Pacific Northwest. The snow continues, sunshine throughout the middle of the country, so that's going to be the lucky spot over the next several days. So this is what it looks like, East Coast soaker, those showers moving into the Northeast and New England tomorrow with storms along the Gulf, and then tomorrow those showers continue in the mid-Atlantic. A little break for the Northeast. We're going to see waves of moisture on the Gulf Coast. And then by Sunday, returning once again with very heavy rain throughout portions of the mid-Atlantic and Northeast.
All right. I guess finish the Christmas decorations in the house.
Stay
inside.
Play on the couch.
Some
Listen,
takeout.
I do not complain. I love rain. It's like the chance to be lazy.
Okay. Very good. I'm going to look at it that way. All right, Michelle, thank you so much.
Sure.
We got more to come on this hour of morning news now, including the legal battle that's now unfolding between one major pharmaceutical company and a pair of Florida pharmacies accused of selling copycat Ozempic. But first, the latest on that widening royal rift, with accusations of racism now rocking the House of Windsor in the wake of the release of a salacious new book. Those stories and more up next. Stay with us. Welcome back. Prince William and his wife Kate appeared in public last night, just days after the release of that controversial book called Endgame. The Dutch version of the book reportedly included the names of two members of the royal family who allegedly had a conversation about the skin color of Prince Harry and Meghan's unborn baby. The British press has now revealed those alleged names. NBC News foreign correspondent Molly Hunter has the latest from London.
Hey, Joe, good morning. Good morning from a very chilly Buckingham Palace. I know this is a story you were following earlier this week, and it has just continued to spiral across international headlines. So the Dutch version of the book, Endgame by Omid Scobie, allegedly names the senior royals that Meghan Markle may have been referring to in that infamous Oprah interview. Well, the Dutch publisher has now pulled the book, calling it an error, and the Dutch translator is now speaking out. Take a look.
This morning, the fallout continues over the new royal book promising salacious details about the breakdown between the royal brothers and their families. Senior royals now caught up in the controversy, but last night, Kate and Will just getting on with it. After author Omid Scobie's book Endgame was yanked off shelves in the Netherlands, following reports it had included the names of two members of the royal family involved, according to Meghan Markle, in a conversation about her unborn baby's skin color, which she alleged back in 2021.
About how dark your baby is going to be?
Potentially, and what that would mean or look like.
Ooh.
The Sussexes have never mentioned the names publicly, and royal reporter Scobie said he didn't either, but has said he had access to private letters sent and received by Meghan.
I had never submitted a book that had their names in it.
But now the British press widely reporting the two people the book allegedly names, King Charles and Kate, the Princess of Wales. NBC News has not obtained the Dutch copy of the book and has not independently verified that the conversation took place. At the time, the Queen said in a statement, the issues raised, particularly that of race, are concerning. While some recollections may vary, they are taken very seriously and will be addressed by the family privately. But the backlash over Scobie's book has dragged the whole controversy back into the spotlight.
It's hugely damaging for the publisher, it's hugely damaging for Omid Scobie, and it's hugely damaging for the royals as well. And it puts Omid Scobie and the publisher at risk of legal action.
In an interview with DailyMail.com, the Dutch translator denies that she made any additions to the manuscript. Saskia Peters reportedly saying, as a translator, I translate what is in front of me. The names of the royals were there in black and white. I did not add them. NBC News has reached out to Peters for comment, and Scobie continues to deny any responsibility for the names being included.
I'm as frustrated as everyone else. I make it very clear in this book that I, in every way possible, want to adhere to the laws surrounding this subject.
Now, Joe, of course, we have reached out to the palace. No official on-the-record statement from the palace, but a palace source says all options are being considered. That could mean anything from saying nothing more or even legal action. Joe?
All right, Molly, thank you so much. Now to some other international news, starting with a controversial landmark ruling in Russia. NBC News foreign correspondent Megan Fitzgerald has that and other world headlines. Megan, good morning.
Joe, good morning to you. That's right. We start in Russia, where the Supreme Court there ruled that LGBTQ activists should be distinguished as extremists. So now, of course, this has fear in the community, where people are fearing that this ruling could lead to arrests and prosecutions. This is just the latest in a string of restrictions we've seen in Russia, where the country has already passed laws outlawing the promotion of what they call non-traditional sexual relations, and they've banned gender changes. Turning now to Spain, where police have opened an investigation after 4 people died after they were believed to have been forced off a moving boat. This happened just off the shores of southern Spain. Police say 35 people believed to be immigrants from northern Africa were on board. Eyewitnesses tell The Guardian that the boat then sped away and the passengers were young people between the ages of 15 and 20 years old. And guys, a bird that's been extinct since 1681 may be making a comeback. A U.S.-based biotechnology and genetic engineering company is trying to bring back the dodo bird and reintroduce it back into the original habitat in Mauritius. The company is also trying to bring back other species like the woolly mammoth, but it's still unclear as to when these species will make that return.
Wow,
guys.
Fascinating. All right, Megan, thank you so much. Coming up, a concerning health alert this morning that is putting some parents in one state on edge. What's behind an alarming rise in pediatric pneumonia cases and what you can do to keep your family safe this season. That's next on Morning News Now. We're back with more on the growing number of pneumonia cases in the U.S. Health officials in Ohio are now reporting a pediatric outbreak of mycoplasma pneumonia. The CDC says it is monitoring the situation, but at this time there is no evidence that the illness is worse than previous years. NBC News medical contributor Dr. Vin Gupta joins us with more on this. Doctor, good to have you with us. So first of all, just how alarmed should we be about this outbreak we're seeing in Ohio?
Well, Joe, good morning. This is not a cause for alarm for the general population. The headlines are scary. They're evocative of what we saw in the early days of COVID-19, but they're very, very different. This is about 145 cases of pediatric pneumonia since the beginning of the fall in Warren County, Ohio. Average age about 8 years of age. There's been no deaths. And what we think is happening in Ohio is just the fact that we've begun to normalize life, frankly, since 2022, but that this is what we're seeing now. These bacteria and viruses that tend to circulate every 3 to 4 years are now impacting various parts of the world, including Ohio. That's why we're seeing this surge here. This is not because of an unknown new cause.
Mycoplasma pneumonia, what is it? How is it different from a normal case?
Well, Joe, I'm glad you brought that up. Mycoplasma pneumonia, classically also known as walking pneumonia, because many of us walk around with it, especially young adults, don't even know we have it. But elderly and young kids are most susceptible. It's a bacteria. It can cause atypical pneumonia, meaning you might not get as sick as you would with, say, the flu or COVID-19, but it can still cause cough, fever, fatigue, but it is something that can very easily spread because many of us may not even know we have it.
We're seeing this rising number of pneumonia cases in China. Is there any sort of connection here, or is China any sort of indicator of what could happen here in America?
The only similarity is that it's a surge, Joe, of various types of causes of pneumonia, whether they're bacteria like mycoplasma or viruses like COVID-19, flu, RSV, that now happen to be afflicting individuals like kids that haven't had immune systems develop either because they've been wearing masks in schools, like in the case of China, or just because some of these viruses and bacteria like mycoplasma circulate every 3 to 4 years. These are known causes of why we're seeing these surges. The headlines are scary, but luckily there's nothing new here.
Let's talk about what parents should be looking out for. What are the symptoms, and can they distinguish between a normal case of pneumonia and mycoplasma?
The answer to that last question is not really. Unfortunately, no. That's where testing is important. So what do parents need to look out for? If your child is feeling, having high fevers, over 103, if they're having a productive cough, shortness of breath, if they're more fatigued than, say, you would expect for their child, to get them seen by their pediatrician, critical. Keep them home also from school to minimize spread. If you're traveling, try to wear a mask, but get them seen because, Joe, to your point, a lot of these different conditions mimic each other. And in some cases, we have treatments like with flu or even with COVID-19 that if you were to get seen early and get tested early, you can get treated early. That actually helps keep people out of the hospital. So don't take anything for granted. If you're a parent of a child or if you have a loved one that's elderly, medically higher risk, get tested because a lot of these conditions mimic each other.
All right. Some good advice. Dr. Vin Gupta, as always, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Now to the weight loss world, where the company behind the popular drug Ozempic has filed a lawsuit against 2 pharmacies for allegedly selling a contaminated copycat version of the drug. NBC News senior business correspondent Christine Romans has the details.
Following the widespread success of its drugs Ozempic and Wegovy, which dramatically aid in weight loss, Novo Nordisk has made billions of dollars this year alone. With one simple injection, the company has tapped into America's never-ending quest to slim down. Now it's suing to protect its patents and its patients.
It's a weight loss gold rush. Ozempic and Wegovy have helped slim waistlines.
I'm down 90 pounds since my highest weight.
While fattening bottom lines. Manufacturer Novo Nordisk's share price has more than quadrupled in the past 5 years. Now, Novo Nordisk is suing 2 companies, Brooksville Pharmaceuticals and Wells Pharmacy, saying they have misbranded compounded drugs claiming to contain semaglutide. That's the patented key ingredient that blunts hunger to lose weight. In the lawsuit, Novo Nordisk says it tested drugs from these pharmacies and found, quote, unknown impurities up to 33% and or inaccurate strengths with at least 19% less semaglutide than labeled.
Compounding pharmacies are not FDA regulated, and so there is no guarantee that the product has gone through the same kind of, rigorous evaluation in terms of safety and efficacy as approved drugs.
In a statement to NBC News, Brooksville disputes the allegations, writing it plans to file a motion to dismiss, saying we purchase all of our bulk ingredients, including semaglutide, from FDA-registered facilities. The company adding, state-licensed compounding pharmacies like Brooksville play a critical role in providing thousands of patients across the United States with an essential medication. A U.S. judge dismissed a similar lawsuit from Novo against Brooksville in October. Wells Pharmacy did not immediately respond to our request for comment. The stakes are high. In the last 3 months of 2022, U.S. healthcare providers wrote more than 9 million prescriptions for Ozempic, Wegovy, and other diabetes and obesity drugs. Since its approval in 2017, Ozempic has accounted for 65% of all semaglutide prescriptions. Stunning growth, but not without some concerns.
They are real medications, and because of that, they can come with some real potential side effects. The most common ones, of course, are nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, constipation.
Because of the soaring popularity and high prices, the new class of weight loss drugs can not only be hard to find, but have also spawned a host of knockoffs. Counterfeit Ozempic was first reported in U.S. pharmacies in June, with the FDA compiling dozens of reports of counterfeit semaglutide. For that reason, medical experts are urging patients to only obtain prescription drugs from state-licensed pharmacies that are located in the U.S.
The undeniable popularity of these drugs has opened the door for all kinds of knockoffs, but they can really create some potentially serious health risks for people who are taking them. So bottom line, make sure these drugs, or any drugs for that matter, are being prescribed by a doctor and coming from a reputable pharmacy. Back to you.
All right, Christine Romans, thank you so much. Coming up, TikTok on trial. After the break, a closer look at a first-of-its-kind proposal to outright ban the app in one state and why one judge now ruling it unconstitutional. Stay with us. That's next. Welcome back. A federal judge has blocked the state of Montana's first-of-its-kind ban on TikTok. The law would have made it illegal to download or use the app in the state. Both the company and people in Montana filed separate suits to try and stop the law from taking effect. For more on this, let's bring in NBC News legal analyst Danny Savallo. So the judge said this violates the Constitution in more ways than one. That was always the question. If you're going to ban something like this, would it be constitutional?
What's the judge saying?
In order to stop this law from going forward, the judge had to find that the plaintiffs, TikTok, were likely to succeed on the merits. And there were several grounds for challenging this law. One was constitutional, and it was the First Amendment. Excuse me, all three are. The First Amendment, of course, is very important. But I have to talk about another area, the Commerce Clause, that I think quietly may be one of the strongest arguments. Yes, there is a First Amendment battle over whether or not people have the right to use TikTok to speak. But those are the kinds of arguments that could go either way. To me, what's particularly compelling is what's called the Dormant Commerce Clause. And I'll just give you an example. Some years back, one state tried to force all trucking that went through that state to use, and I kid you not, a particular kind of mud flap. And you can imagine that every truck coming to that state would either have to get out, put on the mud flap, or avoid the state completely. And if you're a state like, say, Ohio, that is sort of the highway of America, or Indiana, that's a real problem. And the court found that that is an unconstitutional burden on interstate commerce. That's what's called the Dormant Commerce Clause. And from the outset of these bans, I thought this might be a Dormant Commerce Clause problem, and the court concluded that it likely will be. So I frankly think that may even be the stronger argument here.
So with this law, if you post from Montana, you would not be fined. It would be TikTok or the App Store. What are some of the legal issues surrounding that?
Exactly right. And that's the smart strategic move for the state of Montana. You don't want to punish the end users, because not only is that something that wouldn't go over well with the population, it would be really difficult to enforce. Then you'd have to start figuring out where someone was when they accessed TikTok. Instead, what they're targeting is the seller. They're like in drug crimes, don't target the consumer, target the seller. And that's what they're trying to do here, is target the people who sell it on the App Store or wherever, with fines of several $1,000s for every sale. That is probably going to be easier to enforce. You might be able to do it just with IP addresses and information like that you can get by subpoena. So enforcement will be easier. You're going after people with deep pockets. In all, for Montana, it would be a win-win, because they can build some revenue and target TikTok without harming consumers. But consumers are the plaintiffs in this case, along with TikTok. They're saying, hey, we want to be able to use TikTok. We don't want it banned.
So we have Montana saying they want to do this. What's the difference between Montana's ban and the federal government banning on government devices, and states and universities also trying to ban it?
So, for example, when states and universities, universities or the federal government ban TikTok on their own devices, that is a much easier analysis. The federal government, as an employer, can tell its employees what you can and can't use on the cell phone that they give you. Much easier. Federal government certainly has the right to do that. I can't imagine a challenge succeeding. On the other hand, an individual state that makes this decision has to contend with not only the potential that they're violating the First Amendment rights of its citizens to speak, but, as I mentioned before, the Commerce Clause, when one state impermissibly burdens all of interstate commerce with their own law that favors that particular state, then it might violate the Dormant Commerce Clause. And from the outset, even though a lot of this commerce is going on in the ether, on the internet, this is probably a Dormant Commerce Clause violation. That may be the strongest argument going forward why TikTok will be able to remain in Montana, if it's able to remain.
See, Montana does plan to appeal this ruling, so we're going to have to see what happens. All right, Danny Savalos, thank you so much. Years after that massive college admissions scandal made national headlines, we are hearing from one of the biggest names tied to the scheme. Desperate Housewives star Felicity Huffman speaking out for the first time since her release from prison for her involvement. That scandal included dozens of rich and famous parents who were accused of paying top dollar to get their kids into college. Here's NBC News national correspondent Miguel Almaguer with more on what Huffman is saying.
Weeks after this scandal broke in 2019, Felicity Huffman took a plea deal and spent time behind bars. Now, for the first time, she's speaking out on camera.
This morning, Desperate Housewives star Felicity Huffman speaking out for the first time about the college admissions scandal that sent her to prison. Huffman speaking to ABC 7 News in Los Angeles, saying she had no choice.
Felt like I had to give my daughter a chance at a future. And so it was sort of like my daughter's future, which meant I had to break the law.
Huffman, who served 11 days behind bars in 2019 after admitting she paid a fixer to boost her daughter's College Board test score. Huffman says as she was driving her daughter to take the SAT, she began having second thoughts. She was going, "Can we get ice cream afterwards? I'm scared about the test. What can we do that's fun?" And I kept thinking, turn around, just turn around. And to my undying shame, I didn't. The investigation, called Operation Varsity Blues, was based around a scheme run by former college admission consultant Rick Singer. More than 30 high-profile parents, including actress Lori Loughlin and her husband, designer Massimo Giannulli, eventually faced federal charges, accused of conspiring to use bribery and fraud to get their kids into top colleges. Huffman now saying she didn't reach out to Singer intending to break the law, but that after a year, Singer told her that her daughter was not going to get into any of her choice colleges and presented his criminal scheme. Huffman saying, "And I know hindsight is 20/20, but I felt like I would be a bad mother if I didn't do it, so I did it." Now Huffman reflecting on the scandal 4 years later and saying she owes an apology to the academic community and to families whose children worked hard to get into college legitimately.
Huffman says she continues to give back, trying to help women who have been imprisoned move forward. Back to you.
Miguel Almaguer, thank you so much. Financial headlines now, starting with a stark new warning from billionaire Bill Gates. CNBC's Silvana now is with us once again with that and other money headlines. Silvana, good morning.
Hey, Joe, good morning. Yeah, so billionaire and philanthropist Bill Gates said the world is likely to surpass a critical temperature threshold that could permanently damage the Earth. Scientists warn that if the world warms by more than 2 degrees Celsius, the impacts would be dangerous and possibly irreversible. Gates is at the COP28 climate conference in Dubai, where policymakers and business leaders are meeting to discuss how to tackle the climate crisis. Teamsters formed a coalition to unionize an estimated 45,000 Delta Airlines workers. The labor union is working with 2 other associations to organize technicians, sign up flight attendants, and support ramp, cargo, and tower workers. The push to unionize comes after Delta ratified a new contract with workers back in March. And Tesla's new Cybertruck has finally arrived and given a price tag 4 years after it was unveiled. The 3 truck variants are priced between $61,000 and $100,000. The company originally said the truck would cost less than $40,000, but prices shot up after the pandemic, and Tesla's website says the trucks will be available in 2025, Joe, from $40,000 to $61,000. That's
if you're looking for a tank, that is a good price,
right?
for a tank.
For a tank, yeah.
It's what it kind of looks like. All right, Silvana, thank you so much.
You got it.
Coming up, the Beehive positively buzzing this morning on the heels of the star-studded premiere of Queen Bee's new concert film showcasing her blockbuster Renaissance tour. We have got a preview as it hits theaters today. That's up next. Welcome back. Aficionados of film and Hollywood alike won't have to stay up too late anymore when the Oscars roll around in March. For the first time ever, the ceremony is going to start a full hour earlier at 7 p.m. Eastern and will run, allegedly, until 10:30. Yeah, right. It's a targeted runtime of around 3.5 hours. So what's driving the change? Well, the Oscars network home, ABC, reportedly wants to boost primetime ratings of Abbott Elementary, which airs after the awards, which is not primetime. Jimmy Kimmel will be, of course, hosting for the 4th time. You can catch it all live on Sunday, March 10th. The nominations will be announced on January 23rd. Beyonce is already creating a lot of buzz at the box office over her new Renaissance concert film. The first public screenings were held last night, and the Queen Bee herself attended the international premiere in London. It was filled with celebrities and, of course, a lot of silver. NBC News correspondent Emily Ikeda has the details.
Hey there. Well, Beyonce rarely gives fans a peek behind the curtain, but in her new film, the singer provides a look at the making of her world tour and opens up about motherhood. She even had a special surprise in store.
Overnight, the Beehive swarming to theaters for the first public screenings of Renaissance, a film by Beyonce. The superstar surprising fans with a brand new song played during the movie's end credits. It all dropped just hours after the star-studded international premiere for the concert film in London, where pop royalty reunited.
Hi, Tyler.
Taylor Swift making an appearance on the silver carpet, a show of support for Queen Bee, who attended Swift's LA premiere of the Eras Tour concert film in October. Together, the divas dominated the summer. According to one estimate, their tours collectively earned nearly $1.5 billion. Now their sights are set on the box office. According to data from ComScore, Beyonce is projected to rake in $20 to $25 million at U.S. theaters this weekend alone, while Swift is nearing $250 million in earnings worldwide.
I have nothing to prove to anyone at this point.
The Renaissance movie showcases performances in multiple cities along the record-breaking world tour and features cameos from fellow chart-topping musicians. The film also includes rare backstage interviews and home videos documenting the show's creation.
How do we fix this? Because this is a very big problem.
The singer and mother of three even opening up about parenting and dealing with social media criticism aimed at her 11-year-old daughter, Blue Ivy, who often joined her on stage.
To balance motherhood and being on the stage, it just reminds me of who I really am.
Now, as even more fans get ready to be welcomed to the Renaissance, Beyonce may be ready to cuff up a top spot at the box office.
Now, in the past, Beyonce has teased that there are 2 more parts to her Renaissance project, but no word if they're new albums, music videos, or other ventures. We'll just have to wait and see what the Queen does next. Back to you.
All right, Emily, thank you so much. Now, that new Beyonce movie, just one of several things coming out this weekend that's sure to get some buzz. Let's get a look at your can't-miss list with all the movies and shows you can't miss this weekend. For more, we're joined by television host and pop culture expert Andrew Freund. Good to have you here. So Renaissance, of course, is making all the headlines. As Emily mentioned, expected to make $20 million and be on top of the box office perhaps this weekend. There are a few other things coming out, like a revenge-filled Silent Night. What's this one?
Yeah, so this is interesting because it comes from acclaimed director John Woo. This is John Woo's first film in 20 years.
Wow.
So it's taken him a long time. This film stars Joel Kinnaman. But the cool thing about this is there's no dialogue. So there's no dialogue throughout this entire
Silent
film.
Night.
Hence the title, Joe, Silent Night. And there's no dialogue because in the film, Joel has an injury to his throat, so he can't talk. So it's a revenge film based on that. Big action, epic, what you can expect from John Woo.
That's interesting. I'm intrigued by that one. All right. So Family Switch, we got Jennifer Aniston, big name, and Helms. This one's on Netflix, right?
Jennifer Garner.
Jennifer Garner.
You're getting your gens confused, Joe. I know it's early in the morning. It says Garner in the prompter.
It did. Can't read, apparently. My goodness. Jennifer Garner. I mean, you know, they're both great.
They're both Jen, comedy actors. It's Jen Garner and Ed Helms. It's like a classic Family Switch comedy, like a 13 Going on 30, like
Freaky Friday.
Freaky Friday.
Yeah, okay.
Comedy, hijinks ensue. Great for the families on Netflix.
All right. Chuck Lorre and Charlie Sheen. It's fair to say they had a little bit of a falling out.
Yeah, they had a little bit of a
2.5 man days.
Yeah.
It seems like they buried the hatchet. Bookie is a new show, and they're teaming up again?
Yeah, so Bookie's coming out on Max, stars Sebastian Maniscalco, who's obviously the comedian. He plays an LA bookie, and it's one of Laurie's new streaming comedies. And he hasn't had that many streaming comedies, so people are really looking forward to this, and also seeing Charlie Sheen back on screen.
When's the last time we saw Charlie Sheen? I mean, it's been
I don't know.
ages.
I mean, he's so rich. I don't feel bad for that guy. Like, you know, whatever. Like,
he did make a lot of money.
I don't feel bad for some rich guy.
I remember when he did those tours, where he just talked for, and I had to go cover one once in like the Seattle area.
It's cringe.
It was something.
Cringe.
So, well, good to see him. All right. Julianne Moore and Natalie Portman. I think I got the names right there. This time, May, December.
Yeah.
What is this one about?
Okay, I just watched this last night.
Okay.
It's really good. It's an awards contender. Julianne Moore basically plays like a Mary Kay Letourneau type character.
Okay.
Natalie Portman plays an actress who's portraying her in a film. Okay.
Oh.
And Charles Melton plays the younger love interest. And Charles Melton actually is getting a lot of Oscar buzz. He just won the Gotham Award for supporting actor. So we're thinking we might see him, you know, come Oscar Day.
Is this blatantly Mary Kay Letourneau, or does it feel like it's inspired by?
Inspired by. It's by Todd Haynes, who's an amazing director. This film, Just watch it. Just watch it. I don't want to give too much away, but it's really good.
I can tell you're excited about it.
Yeah.
And
I get excited for movies.
They both already have Oscars anyway. So All right. Finally, Paris Hilton's back, season 2 of her reality show.
Yeah.
Paris in Love. What
Paris is in love. I mean, aren't we happy Paris is in love? We're so happy she's in love. And nothing screams Yuletide like Paris Hilton. But it's the second season of her show. This we get to follow her marriage to Carter, and we also get to see her new baby. Joe, are you excited to see the new baby?
I want to see Paris's new baby.
Yes, but the interesting thing about this is her mom, Kathy, meets the baby for the first time on camera.
On camera. Well, did she, or is that just...
I mean, I don't know. But it's streaming on Peacock, and we love Peacock, right, Joe?
We love Peacock. We do love Peacock.
Yes.
And anything involving the Hiltons right now in reality television is certainly making
I mean, I do love Paris. Paris, you know. Yeah. Paris, I'm in love. I'm trying to give all the Paris.
You're in love with Paris. All right,
yeah.
Very good. A lot to take in. My goodness. And then award season's coming, so it's just going to keep on going.
I'm here, Joe. I'm covering it all.
What's getting the best buzz right now as we head into Oscar season?
I mean, we're hearing a lot of buzz about May, December.
Yeah.
We're hearing huge buzz about The Color Purple. Danielle Brooks, if you're watching, congratulations on your Oscar nomination because she.
They love a singing role.
Oh my God! But she is Sophia. She my paper up. She steals the film and the music and everything about it is. It's very exciting.
All right, very good. Andrew Freund, thanks so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate it. Lots to watch. That's going to do it for this hour of Morning News. Now, stay with us. The news continues right now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.